Chapter 1. The Ordinary Lie. Yeah, I'm still at work, she said, her voice slightly breathless through the phone. It's chaos tonight. I told you it might run late. Daniel folded another t-shirt carefully along its seams, smoothing invisible wrinkles with the edge of his hand. He held the phone between his shoulder and ear while standing over the couch, surrounded by neat stacks of laundry. You say that every Thursday, he teased gently. At this point, I'm convinced your office secretly lives off overtime. A faint pause crackled through the line. Then she laughed, short, polite, almost like she remembered she was supposed to laugh. Well, somebody's got to pay for your coffee addiction. He smiled automatically, though something about the rhythm of the conversation felt off. He tried to ignore it. Relationships had phases. Stress happened. Work got busy. I made pasta, he said. Your favorite. Figure we could eat together when you got home. Another pause. Oh, don't wait up, okay, she said quickly. I might be really late. He shifted the phone to his hand and sat down on the couch, picking up one of her sweaters. Soft gray knit, slightly oversized, she used to steal it from him before buying one identical for herself. He remembered when she wore it curled against him during winter movies. Hey, he said lightly, I like waiting up. Makes me feel like I'm in some romantic movie or something. She exhaled sharply. You don't have to make everything sentimental, Dan. The words weren't harsh, but the tone was flat, detached. He blinked. Sorry, he said quickly, instinctively smoothing the moment. Just miss you, that's all. I know, she replied, softer now, but distracted. He heard something in the background, voices, maybe, not clear enough to understand, but not the quiet office environment he imagined. A low laugh echoed faintly behind her. Mail? Maybe. Or maybe just his imagination. He shook his head and focused on folding. How's work? He asked. Anything interesting? Same stuff. Meetings. Deadlines. You know. He waited for more. She used to tell stories, funny coworkers, annoying clients, little details that made him feel part of her world. Now her answers felt like summaries instead of conversations. He tried again. You should video call me for a minute, he said casually. I want to see your face. A beat. I can't right now, she said quickly. Why not? I told you I'm busy. I know, just 30 seconds. Humor your husband. No, she said, firmer. I mean, I can't. It's loud here, and I look like a mess. He frowned slightly, though she couldn't see it. You always look good to me, he said. Another small laugh, but again it sounded rehearsed, like an actor hitting a mark. You're sweet, she said. Listen, I really have to go. He glanced at the clock. 9:12 p.m. She used to text him around 6, asking what he wanted for dinner. Used to race him home from work. Used to talk about future vacations, kids, paint colors for rooms they didn't own yet. He swallowed. Everything okay? He asked quietly. Of course, she said too quickly. Why wouldn't it be? I don't know. You just seem different lately. Silence. He immediately regretted saying it. I'm just tired, she replied finally. Not everything has to mean something, Dan. He nodded to himself, though she couldn't see. Right? Don't overthink. Don't accuse. Trust. That was the foundation of marriage. Loyalty meant believing even when doubt whispered otherwise. Okay, he said gently. Drive safe when you leave. I will. And text me, so I know you're on the way. And Mitchum. Another pause lingered between them. He wanted to say I love you, but lately he found himself hesitating. Not because he didn't feel it, but because she said it less often now, and the silence after he said it alone made something inside him ache. Still, he pushed through. I love you. She didn't answer right away. Yeah, she said finally. I'll talk to you later. The line clicked dead. Daniel stared at his phone for a moment before setting it down slowly on the coffee table. The apartment felt too quiet afterward, like someone had turned down the volume on life itself. He finished folding the rest of the laundry with mechanical precision, her clothes stacked separately from his, socks paired carefully, shirts aligned. He liked order. It made things feel stable. In the kitchen, a pot of pasta sat warming on low heat. He stirred it absently, tasting the sauce and adding a pinch of salt. 2 plates were already set at the table. He hesitated, then moved one back into the cabinet. Don't wait up, she'd said. He rinsed his hands and leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the dim streetlights. He told himself everything was fine. Work stress happened. People changed. Marriage wasn't always movie perfect. Still, small memories drifted through his mind like loose threads. Her turning her phone face down more often. New passwords. Late nights becoming normal. The way she sometimes smiled at texts she didn't show him. He shook his head sharply. No, trust meant not chasing ghosts. He had always believed that loyalty wasn't just about staying faithful. It was about choosing faith in your partner, even when uncertainty crept in. Questioning too much poisoned things. And he wasn't that guy. He wasn't jealous, suspicious, controlling. He worked hard, came home, cooked dinner, paid the bills on time. He believed love was consistency, not drama. He walked back into the living room and sat down heavily, flipping on the television without really watching it. Minutes ticked by. 9:27 p.m. He picked up her sweater again, pressing it absent-mindedly to his face. It still smelled faintly like her perfume, soft and warm. His chest tightened unexpectedly. Get a grip, he muttered to himself. He reached for his phone, checking for a message. Nothing. Maybe she really was busy. Maybe he was just tired. The phone rang suddenly, loud and sharp in the quiet room. He jumped slightly, heart racing. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering, a strange chill running through him for no reason he could explain. Hello. Is this Daniel Mercer? A calm, professional voice asked. Yes. This is St. Mary's Medical Center. Sir, I'm calling regarding your wife. His breath caught. What about her? There was a pause on the other end, heavy, careful. I'm very sorry to inform you. Chapter 2. The call that breaks reality. I'm very sorry to inform you. The words fell slowly, carefully measured, like something fragile being lowered into place. Daniel tightened his grip on the phone. Inform me about what? A brief pause followed, the kind filled with silent preparation. Sir, the voice continued gently. Your wife was admitted last night following a serious motor vehicle accident. She underwent emergency surgery, but she did not survive the procedure. The room tilted. What? The word came out hollow. No, that's not possible. I understand this is extremely difficult to hear. No, he said again, louder now. You're wrong. I just spoke to her. She called me maybe 10 minutes ago. She's at work. You have the wrong person. He stood abruptly, pacing across the living room as if movement could shake the words loose from reality. Can you confirm your wife's name, please? The caller asked calmly. He swallowed. Emily Mercer. A pause. Papers shuffling. Yes, sir. Emily N. Mercer. Date of birth. The voice recited details that struck him like blows, each correct, precise. His stomach dropped. That doesn't mean anything, he stammered. There has to be some kind of mistake. The identification was confirmed via fingerprint analysis and dental records. Daniel pressed a hand against his forehead. The walls seemed too close, the air too thick. That's not possible, he repeated quietly, more to himself now. I just talked to her. She's alive. We have a timestamp of death recorded at 8:43 p.m., the voice continued gently. She was wearing a hospital bracelet bearing patient ID number. He stopped listening. 8:43 p.m. He checked the call history with shaking fingers. His conversation with Emily had started at 9:04 p.m. His chest tightened. No, he whispered. No, sir. She called me, he insisted. After that time. You're wrong. Someone made a mistake. We understand how shocking this is. The local police department has been notified and will likely contact you shortly to assist with next steps. The word police sent a cold ripple through him. What accident? He demanded. Where? According to records, her vehicle was involved in a collision approximately 2 miles from St. Mary's at 6:17 p.m. Emergency responders transported her immediately. 2 miles. 2 miles from where she supposedly worked late. He felt a crack opening inside his thoughts, like a fault line splitting the ground. This can't be real, he said hoarsely. I'm deeply sorry for your loss, the voice said quietly. If you have someone who can be with you right now, I recommend you reach out. I don't need, he stopped himself, breathing hard. You have the wrong person. Silence answered him. I just talked to her. He repeated again, desperate now. The caller hesitated. Sir, grief can manifest in many ways. If you need, I said I talked to her. The words echoed harshly through the room. Another pause. Would you like me to verify the hospital bracelet ID number with you? He almost said no, almost hung up, but something compelled him. Yes. The caller read a string of numbers slowly. Daniel walked toward the kitchen table, scanning absent-mindedly for anything to anchor him. A bill, a receipt, something real. I don't understand, he murmured. We can arrange for you to come in, and I'll call you back. He interrupted abruptly, ending the call before he could hear anything else. The silence afterward felt heavier than before. It pressed against his ears, against his chest. He stared at his phone screen. Call ended. His hands trembled. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. He opened their message thread, scrolling frantically. There it was. Emily, still at work. Don't wait up. Timestamp 20 minutes ago. He stared at it, rereading the words over and over. Still at work. Still alive. Right? His breathing grew shallow. Maybe someone stole her identity. Maybe the hospital messed up. People made mistakes all the time. He'd seen news stories about it. He opened the location-sharing app they used occasionally. Her last known location appeared as a small blue dot. Downtown, near her office building. See? Proof. He let out a shaky breath. You're overreacting, he muttered aloud. It's just a mix-up. But why mention fingerprints? Dental records? Those weren't easy things to mess up. A faint creak sounded somewhere in the apartment, and he turned quickly, heart racing. Nothing. The house suddenly felt unfamiliar, like a place he'd never truly known. The shadows seemed deeper, the corners darker. The ticking clock on the wall sounded unnaturally loud. He walked slowly toward the kitchen, drawn by instinct rather than thought. Each step felt heavy, unreal. The hallway light flickered faintly as he passed beneath it. His mind replayed the call in fragments. Emergency surgery. Did not survive. Time of death. 8:43 p.m. He swallowed hard. No, he whispered again. The smell hit him first. Garlic. Butter. Something warm cooking. He froze at the entrance to the kitchen. Soft humming filled the air, a tune he recognized instantly. She always hummed when she cooked, absent-mindedly, like background music to their life. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped forward. She stood at the stove with her back to him, stirring a pan. Her hair fell over her shoulders exactly the way it always did. She wore the same dark blouse she had left the house in that morning. Relief slammed into him so hard it almost hurt. Emily, he said weakly. She turned, smiling casually as if nothing in the world was wrong. Hey, she said. You're still up? The sound of her voice flooded him with warmth and confusion all at once. She looked completely normal. Alive. Real. You're home, he said, disbelief thick in his voice. Obviously, she replied lightly. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? He stepped closer slowly, searching her face for something, anything, that matched the nightmare from moments ago. I just got a call from a hospital, he said carefully. They said the words died in his throat. She raised an eyebrow. They said what? That you were. He shook his head. Never mind. It's stupid. They must have mixed you up with someone else. Yeah, she said quickly, turning back to the stove. Sounds like it. He watched her silently, trying to calm his racing thoughts. She moved normally, confidently, like she belonged there. Everything was fine. Everything was normal, except his eyes dropped to her wrist. A plastic hospital bracelet circled it tightly, catching the kitchen light as she moved. Chapter 3, The Bracelet. The bracelet caught the light like a blade. Daniel stared at it, unable to blink. The thin strip of white plastic rested against her skin, printed with black text and a barcode. It wasn't loose, wasn't old. It looked freshly placed, tight against her wrist, as if someone had snapped it shut only hours ago. Emily stirred the pan casually, humming under her breath. His heart pounded. He said slowly, his voice careful, fragile. What's that on your wrist? She glanced down, as if noticing it for the first time. For a fraction of a second, just a flicker, something unreadable crossed her face. Then she smiled. Oh, this, she said lightly. It's nothing. Just hospital stuff. Hospital stuff? He repeated. Yeah, she said quickly. I stopped by earlier. They messed up my records or something. Long story. The words felt rehearsed. Too smooth. He stepped closer, eyes fixed on the bracelet. There was a faint redness around her skin where it pressed tight. Just above it, barely visible, were tiny puncture marks for marks. His stomach dropped. "You went to the hospital?" he asked. "MHM. When?" "Earlier today. But you said you were at work." She shrugged, flipping something in the pan. "I was. Then I wasn't. You know how life works." The casual tone felt wrong. He forced a small laugh. "You scared me for a second." "What?" "I got a call from St. Mary's," he said slowly, watching her reaction. They said you were dead." She froze, only for a moment. Then she laughed. The sound rang hollow in the kitchen. "Wow," she said. "That's dramatic. Must have been some kind of mix-up." He watched her carefully. "You don't seem surprised." "Well," she said, shrugging again, "hospitals screw up all the time." Something twisted in his chest. Emily used to ask questions. Used to lean in, curious, concerned. Now she seemed uninterested, dismissive, like the conversation bored her. "You okay?" she asked suddenly, turning toward him. The way she said it felt different. Not tender, not worried, more like an observation. He stepped forward slowly, reaching for her. Without thinking, he pulled her into a hug. Her body felt warm, solid, real. He wrapped his arms around her tightly, pressing his face against her shoulder. Relief surged through him so strongly it almost hurt. "You're here," he murmured. "That's all that matters." Her arms came up around him a second later, slightly delayed, and rested lightly against his back. Not the tight embrace she used to give, not the way she used to hold him like he was home. Just enough. He pulled back, studying her face. Her eyes looked the same, her smile familiar, but something beneath the surface felt different, like an actor playing a role almost perfectly, but missing small cues. "You look tired," he said softly. "Long day," she replied. "Were you really in an accident?" Her expression hardened slightly. "I told you, it was a mix-up. But the bracelet, I forgot to take it off," she cut in quickly. "And the 4 marks?" She glanced at her arm, then shrugged again. "Routine stuff." "Routine?" His instincts prickled. "You hate needles," he said quietly. Her smile faltered for half a second. "People change," she said. The words landed heavier than they should have. He nodded slowly, unsure what to say. She turned back to the stove, stirring again, humming softly. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, tighter. Daniel leaned against the counter, watching her movements. Every gesture seemed slightly off, not enough to clearly identify, but enough to make his stomach churn. "How was work?" he asked carefully. "Busy." "What were you working on?" "Just projects." "You always tell me about them," he said gently. She shrugged. "Not tonight." Silence settled between them. He stared at the bracelet again. The printed text faced outward now. St. Mary's Medical Center. His throat went dry. "You should probably take that off," he said quietly. "I will." "When?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for a spoon, tasted the food, and added seasoning. The normalcy of the moment clashed violently with the panic building inside him. He told himself to calm down. Trust her. There had to be a logical explanation. But loyalty suddenly felt like walking blindfolded towards something sharp. "Why didn't you tell me you went to the hospital?" he asked. She sighed, turning to face him again. "Daniel," she said, her tone almost impatient now. "Do we really need to turn this into a whole thing? I'm just asking. And I'm just saying it's nothing. They made a mistake. End of story." Her eyes held his challenging. He nodded slowly. "Okay." But it wasn't okay. He could feel it. Something beneath the surface felt wrong. Not loud. Not obvious, but undeniable. She walked past him toward the sink, brushing his shoulder lightly. The contact felt familiar, yet distant, like touching a memory instead of a person. "Sit," she said casually. "Dinner's almost ready." He obeyed automatically, lowering himself into a chair at the table. She plated the food with precise movements, placing it in front of him. "Eat," she said. He picked up his fork, though his appetite had vanished. "You're really sure everything's okay?" he asked again. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm right here, aren't I?" The words should have comforted him. Instead, they unsettled him, because something about the way she said it felt literal. as if being physically present was the only proof she intended to offer. He watched her sit across from him, noticing small details he couldn't explain, the way she held her fork slightly differently, the way her gaze lingered too long on his face, as if studying him. "Why are you staring?" she asked, amused. "Just looking at my wife," he said quietly. Her smile widened, but there was something almost cocky about it now, a confidence that felt unfamiliar. "Well," she said lightly, "enjoy the view." The joke fell off. He forced a small chuckle anyway. The silence stretched. Then, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Both of them froze. Another knock followed, louder this time. Emily's eyes flicked toward the door. Daniel stood slowly, heart racing again for reasons he couldn't fully understand. "I'll get it," he said. He walked toward the front door, every step heavy, his mind spinning with questions he couldn't yet voice. The knocking came again. Firm. Official. He reached for the handle, hesitating for a brief second before opening it. Two uniformed police officers stood outside. Chapter 4, The Officers. Daniel stared at the two officers standing on his doorstep, their silhouettes framed by the dim hallway light behind them. One was older, gray creeping into his hair at the temples, his posture calm but alert. The other looked younger, eyes sharp, scanning past Daniel into the apartment. "Mr. Mercer?" the older officer asked quietly. "Yes," Daniel said, his voice tight. "I'm Officer Hale. This is Officer Ramirez. May we come inside?" Something about their tone, cautious, controlled, made his stomach twist. "Is this about the hospital call?" he asked. They exchanged a quick glance. "Yes, sir," Hale replied. "We need to speak with you." Daniel hesitated, then stepped aside. "Okay." They entered slowly, their movements deliberate. The younger officer's gaze drifted immediately toward the kitchen. Emily stood there, leaning lightly against the counter, watching them with a faint, unreadable smile. The air in the apartment changed instantly. It felt heavier, colder. Hale turned back to Daniel and lowered his voice. "Sir, we need you to step away from the woman." The words landed like a physical blow. "What?" Daniel asked, confused. "Please," Hale said gently but firmly. "Come stand over here with us." Daniel looked past him toward Emily. She tilted her head slightly, almost amused, as if watching a strange play unfold. "What's going on?" Daniel asked, his voice rising. "Why are you talking like that?" "Just come here," Ramirez said quietly. Something in their expressions, not hostile, but deeply serious, made him obey. He stepped away from the kitchen, his feet moving slowly, unwillingly. Hale positioned himself slightly between Daniel and Emily. "Ma'am," Hale called toward the kitchen. "Please remain where you are." Emily smiled faintly. "I'm not going anywhere," she said calmly. Her tone was too relaxed. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. "Can someone tell me what the hell is happening?" he demanded. Hale nodded slowly. "We're going to explain everything, sir. But first, I need you to stay calm." "I am calm," Daniel snapped, though his shaking hands betrayed him. The officer reached into a folder he carried and pulled out a photograph. "Mr. Mercer," he said carefully, "I need you to look at this." Daniel took the photo automatically. The world tilted again. It was Emily, lying on a hospital bed, eyes closed, skin pale, tubes and wires attached, dead. His breath caught in his throat. "No," he whispered. The photo slipped slightly in his fingers. That's not real. It was taken this evening at St. Mary's Medical Center," Hale said gently. Daniel shook his head violently. "No, she's right there." He pointed toward the kitchen. "She's alive. You're seeing her." "We are," Ramirez said quietly. Daniel stared at them, waiting for the explanation that would make sense. It didn't come. "What are you saying?" he demanded. Hale inhaled slowly. "Legally," he said, choosing each word carefully, "your wife, Emily Mercer, is deceased." The word struck like thunder. Daniel laughed, a short, broken sound. "That's insane. She's literally cooking dinner." He turned toward her again. Emily watched silently, arms crossed loosely, expression almost curious. "Say something," Daniel said to her. "Tell them they're wrong." She shrugged slightly. "They seem very convinced," she said lightly. The officers exchanged another glance. Daniel's chest tightened. What is this? He asked. Some kind of mistake? Identity mix-up? Hale shook his head slowly. Sir, we confirmed identification through fingerprints and dental records. The body at the hospital is your wife. Daniel felt heat rush into his face. That's impossible. His voice cracked. I talked to her tonight. She hugged me. She's standing right there. Yes, Ramirez said quietly. And that's why we're here. The room felt like it was closing in. Hale stepped closer, lowering his voice. We believe the woman in your kitchen may be connected to an ongoing investigation involving hospital personnel. Daniel blinked. What investigation? Hale glanced toward Emily again before speaking. There is evidence of an identity fraud operation linked to surgical intake processes. In several cases, critically injured patients were used to stage deaths, allowing individuals to assume new identities. Daniel stared at him, uncomprehending. You're saying what? That she's pretending to be my wife. We're saying, Hale corrected gently, that the situation is complicated. Complicated? Daniel's voice rose sharply. You're telling me my wife is dead while she's standing 10 feet away from me. That's not complicated, that's insane. Emily chuckled softly from the kitchen. The sound cut through him like glass. All this drama, she said. You think I murdered someone. Daniel turned toward her, anger flaring. Stop joking, he snapped. What is going on? She tilted her head, studying him with a faint smile that didn't feel like the woman he knew. You always hated surprises, she said casually. The officers stiffened slightly. Hale raised a hand toward her. Ma'am, please refrain from making sudden movements. She rolled her eyes. I'm literally standing here, cooking pasta. Daniel's mind raced, unable to keep up. Identity fraud? Fake deaths? It sounded like something from a crime show, not his life. She's my wife, he said stubbornly, turning back to the officers. I know her. Hale's expression softened. I believe you love her, he said quietly. The distinction hit harder than anything else. Love her, not know her. Daniel felt anger rise, hot and sharp. You're wrong, he said through clenched teeth. All of you are wrong. His eyes darted between the officers and Emily. The kitchen light reflected off the plastic hospital bracelet still wrapped around her wrist. His stomach churned. Emily, he said again, more urgently now, just tell me what's happening. She met his gaze, and for a moment something unreadable flickered behind her eyes. Amusement, maybe, or something darker. Well, she said slowly, it looks like your night just got interesting. The atmosphere shifted further, heavier, darker. Daniel's head spun between denial, rage, and confusion, each emotion crashing into the other without warning. Nothing made sense. Nothing felt real. And yet everything was happening right in front of him. Chapter 5, The Double Life. The room felt smaller with every passing second. Daniel stood between the officers and the kitchen, his mind racing too fast to form coherent thoughts. Emily leaned casually against the counter, watching everything unfold as if she were merely a guest observing someone else's drama. Officer Hale cleared his throat. Mr. Mercer, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to explain what we've uncovered so far. Daniel dragged a hand across his face, trying to steady himself. Then explain, he said hoarsely, because none of this makes sense. Hale nodded and opened his folder again. Papers rustled softly. We began investigating irregularities at St. Mary's several months ago, he said, specifically involving patient records, surgical intake procedures, and identity discrepancies. Daniel stared blankly. What does that have to do with my wife? Ramirez answered this time. We believe Emily Mercer was involved with an employee at the hospital, someone with access to restricted systems. Daniel felt the words before he understood them. Involve how? Silence lingered for a beat too long. Hale met his eyes. In a personal relationship. The meaning hit like a punch to the chest. No, Daniel said immediately. That's wrong. Emily didn't react. She would never. He stopped himself, glancing toward her, searching for outrage, denial, anything. She simply watched him, expression unreadable. That's not true, he insisted. Hale slid a photograph from the folder and handed it to him. Daniel hesitated before taking it. The image showed Emily entering a hospital parking garage late at night. A man stood beside her, tall, wearing scrubs. They stood close together, too close for co-workers. Another photo followed. This time a man's hand rested on her lower back. Daniel's stomach twisted violently. "This is fake," he said weakly. "It's surveillance footage," Ramirez said gently. He looked up at Emily. "Tell them," he said quietly. "Tell them this is some kind of misunderstanding." She sighed softly, almost bored. "It's not exactly wrong," she admitted. The words shattered something inside him. "What?" His voice cracked. "It wasn't like that at first," she added casually, as if discussing the weather. Daniel felt heat rush to his face. "You cheated on me?" he asked, barely able to form the sentence. She shrugged slightly. "That word sounds so dramatic." His hands curled into fists. "Answer me." "Yes," she said simply. The honesty landed harder than denial ever could. The room spun. Hale stepped closer, speaking gently but firmly. "We also recovered financial records," he said. "Hidden accounts opened under alternate email addresses." He placed several printed pages on the table. Daniel stared at unfamiliar numbers, transfers, deposits, withdrawals he had never seen before. "Where did this money come from?" he asked. Emily didn't respond. "It appears funds were being moved over several months," Hale continued. "Enough to establish a new identity and relocation plan." Daniel laughed bitterly. "A new life," he muttered. "While I was what? Cooking dinner." Memories began flashing through his mind, suddenly sharp and painful. Her sudden interest in joining a gym across town. One she insisted was more convenient. The new perfume she started wearing, claiming a co-worker recommended it. The nights she came home exhausted but distant, barely speaking. He remembered standing in the kitchen months ago, trying to reconnect. "Are we okay?" he had asked then. "You worry too much," she had said. Now the words echoed differently. "You told me you were working late," he said slowly, looking at her. "I was busy," she replied lightly. Busy with him. She didn't deny it. The officers watched silently, giving him space. Daniel's chest tightened painfully. All those nights, he stayed up waiting. All the extra shifts he picked up to cover expenses when she claimed work stress. All the small gestures, cooking her favorite meals, leaving notes, trying to make her smile. He had been working harder to save something she had already abandoned. The realization burned. "You were already leaving," he whispered. She tilted her head. "I was planning," she corrected. "Planning to disappear?" Another shrug. "Planning to be happy." The words cut deep. "And I wasn't enough?" he asked quietly. Her expression softened briefly, but not with regret. "You were safe," she said. "Predictable. Loyal." The way she said loyal sounded like criticism. He felt anger rise, hot and sharp. "That's supposed to be a bad thing?" "For some people," she said calmly, "it gets boring." Ramirez shifted uncomfortably. Hale continued carefully. "We believe the car accident created an opportunity," he said. "Medical chaos, multiple critical patients, overwhelmed staff. Under those circumstances, identity manipulation becomes easier." Daniel struggled to follow. "You're saying she used the accident to fake her death?" "We're saying," Hale replied, "there is evidence suggesting she intended to stage a legal death and assume another identity." Daniel turned toward Emily again, searching her face for the woman he thought he knew. "Is that true?" She smiled faintly. "I didn't think you'd find out like this." The casual tone made his stomach churn. "You were just going to disappear?" he asked. "That was the idea." "And me?" he demanded. "What about me?" She looked at him with something almost like pity. "You would have moved on eventually." Rage flared through him. "You erased me," he said, voice shaking. "I free myself," she corrected. The words hung heavy between them. Hale stepped forward gently. "Mr. Mercer, based on what we've uncovered, it appears the accident and surgery were used as cover. We believe your wife attempted to legally stage her death as part of an identity fraud scheme." Chapter 6. The woman wearing his wife's face. The kitchen lights felt too bright. Daniel blinked slowly, as if adjusting to a new reality he hadn't agreed to enter. The officers stood nearby, alert but silent, giving space to something they clearly didn't fully understand either. Emily leaned against the counter, arms loosely crossed, the plastic hospital bracelet still catching the light whenever she moved. She looked like his wife, exactly like her. But the longer he stared, the more small things began to feel wrong. Tiny delays before reactions. A smile that lingered half a second too long. The way her eyes held his without warmth, as if studying him instead of connecting. He swallowed hard. "You're not acting like yourself," he said quietly. She smirked faintly. "Maybe you never really knew who I was." The words sent a cold ripple through him. "That's not funny. I'm not joking." Her voice carried a different texture, slightly sharper, almost amused by his discomfort. He searched her face desperately, looking for familiar softness. You hate confrontation. You would never talk like this." She shrugged. "People change." "You keep saying that," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "But this isn't just change." He struggled to explain the feeling, like watching someone wearing a perfect mask, but missing something essential beneath it. A memory flickered into his mind suddenly. 2 years ago, when they had gotten lost during a road trip and she laughed so hard she cried. She had squeezed his hand and said, "Even when things go wrong, at least we're together." He grasped for that version of her. "What happened to us?" he asked quietly. Her expression softened briefly, then hardened again. "I got tired," she said. "Tired of what?" "Tired of being the good wife," she replied. "The loyal one. The predictable one." Her gaze slid over him. "Tired of living inside a life that felt like it was already written." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "We built that life together." "You built it," she corrected. "I just lived in it." The words stung. "You never said you were unhappy." "Would it have mattered?" "Yes," he said sharply. She tilted her head, studying him again, that same unsettling look. "You would have tried harder," she said. "Cooked more dinners. Worked more overtime. Bought more flowers. Fixed everything except the one thing that mattered." "And what was that?" he demanded. "Me," she said simply. Silence fell heavily. Something about the way she said it didn't feel like confession, more like observation. He watched her closely, noticing more details. The way she blinked slightly slower. The way her posture felt subtly different, less relaxed, more deliberate. Even the rhythm of her breathing felt unfamiliar. "You forgot our anniversary last year," he said suddenly. She frowned slightly. "No, I didn't." "Yes," he insisted. "You pretended you didn't care, but later you cried in the bathroom. You thought I didn't notice." She stared at him blankly for a moment. Then she laughed lightly. "That sounds dramatic." His stomach dropped. "You don't remember? Why would I cry over something like that?" "Because you used to care," he thought. He stepped closer slowly, searching her eyes. "What about the lake house trip?" he asked quickly. "When we got caught in the rain and you slipped on the dock." She hesitated. "I don't remember slipping." He felt the world tilt again. "You broke your sandal," he said. "We laughed about it for weeks." She shrugged. "Maybe I forgot." But the way she said it felt wrong. Not like someone trying to recall a memory, but like someone deciding whether to accept a fact. The creepiness crawled up his spine. He glanced briefly toward the officers. They watched quietly, tension visible in their posture. "You're scaring me," he admitted softly. She smiled faintly. "You always scare easily." "No," he said. "I don't." She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "You were always safe," she said, her tone almost teasing now. "Reliable. Predictable. The guy who folds laundry perfectly and waits up with dinner. That's supposed to be a bad thing?" "It's not exciting," she replied casually. Her words landed like cold water. "I gave you stability," he said. "You gave me a cage," she countered. His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." She laughed softly. "Fair," she echoed. "You thought loyalty meant never changing, never questioning, just staying." He stared at her. "That's what marriage is." "No," she said quietly. "That's what you wanted marriage to be." Her eyes glinted with something sharp, almost cocky. "You were so proud of being the perfect husband," she added. "You never noticed I stopped being the perfect wife." The accusation burned. "I noticed," he said quietly. "I just trusted you." She smirked. "That was your first mistake." The words sent another chill through him. He looked at her again, really looked, and the uncanny feeling intensified. Same face, same voice, but something inside felt hollow, as if he were speaking to someone wearing her memories like clothing. "Who are you?" he whispered before he could stop himself. Her smile widened slowly. "I told you," she said. "I'm someone who finally decided to be free." But the way she said it sounded less like liberation, more like transformation. And for the first time, a darker thought crept into his mind. What if she wasn't pretending to be someone else? What if she truly believed she wasn't the woman he married anymore? He felt cold all over. The kitchen suddenly felt wrong, shadows stretching too long across the floor, silence pressing in around them. Every instinct told him something deeper was off, something he couldn't yet name. He stood frozen, staring at the woman wearing his wife's face. Chapter 7, The Body in the Morgue. The silence after his question lingered like smoke. Daniel stood motionless, staring at the woman in front of him, the woman who looked exactly like his wife, but felt increasingly like a stranger wearing familiar skin. The officers shifted subtly behind him, exchanging looks he couldn't decipher. Officer Hale cleared his throat gently. "Mr. Mercer," he said, voice steady but heavy, "there's something else you need to know." Daniel didn't turn away from her. He couldn't. "What now?" he asked quietly. Hale hesitated, as if weighing how much damage the next sentence would cause. "We've confirmed identification of the body at the hospital through multiple independent methods," he said. "Fingerprint analysis, dental records, surgical history markers. There is no doubt." Daniel swallowed hard. "You already said that." "I know," Hale replied. "But you need to understand the certainty." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No," he whispered. "I don't. Because she's right here." Emily, or the woman who looked like her, watched him silently, expression unreadable. Hale took a slow breath. "The autopsy revealed additional findings," he continued carefully. Something in his tone made Daniel's chest tighten. "What findings?" Hale's eyes softened with something like sympathy. "Your wife was pregnant." The world cracked. Daniel blinked once, twice, as if trying to process words spoken in another language. "What?" The word came out barely audible. "Approximately 12 weeks," Hale said gently. Daniel's legs felt weak. "No," he said immediately. That's impossible." He looked toward Emily again, searching her face for denial, for shock, for anything. She simply watched him. "You didn't tell me that," he said to her. She tilted her head slightly. "I didn't think it mattered anymore." His breath hitched. "What do you mean it didn't matter?" The officers remained silent, allowing the moment to unfold. "You were pregnant?" he demanded, voice shaking. She shrugged faintly. "It wasn't part of the plan." "Plan?" The word echoed painfully. "You were going to leave without telling me I was going to be a father?" he asked, disbelief flooding his voice. She looked at him almost curiously. "You weren't." He froze. "What?" Hale stepped forward slowly. "Mr. Mercer, there's another detail we need to clarify." Daniel turned toward him mechanically. "The hospital conducted preliminary DNA testing," Hale continued, "given the circumstances of the investigation." Daniel's stomach twisted violently. "And?" he asked, though part of him already sensed the answer. Hale hesitated. "The results indicate you are not the biological father." The words hit harder than anything else. Sound vanished from the room. The air thickened, pressing down on his chest. Daniel stared at Hale without blinking. "No," he whispered. "I'm sorry," Hale said quietly. "No," Daniel repeated, louder now, shaking his head. "That's wrong. It has to be wrong." He turned toward Emily again, desperate. "Tell them," he said. "Tell them that's not true." She sighed softly. "You always wanted kids," she said, almost absently. "That doesn't answer me," he shouted. Her gaze remained calm, detached. "It wasn't yours," she said simply. The bluntness shattered him. His knees buckled slightly, and he grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. All the nights, he stayed up worrying about their future. All the conversations about starting a family when the time was right. All the quiet hopes he never said aloud. Gone. Rewritten. Lies layered over lies. "How long?" he asked hoarsely. She didn't answer. "How long were you sleeping with him?" he demanded. Her silence told him everything. Rage surged through him, mixing with grief until he couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. "You let me believe," he choked out, "that you were enough?" she finished coolly. The words cut deep. I trusted you, he said. She shrugged again. That was your choice. The cruelty felt unreal. Daniel staggered back slightly, running a hand through his hair. His mind replayed recent months in fractured flashes. Her coming home later and later. The sudden gym membership. The way she avoided intimacy, claiming exhaustion. The subtle emotional distance he had ignored because he believed loyalty meant patience. And beneath those memories, another feeling crept in, something stranger. Moments when she felt absent. He remembered sitting beside her on the couch weeks ago, talking about his day while she stared at nothing, expression blank, eyes distant. He had asked if she was okay. She had smiled, but the smile felt empty. Hollow, like now. He looked at her again, and the uncanny feeling intensified. Same face, same voice, but something essential missing. Was she always like this, and he just never saw it? Or had something truly changed? A cold thought crept into his mind. Was the woman in front of him ever really his wife anymore? The room felt darker somehow, shadows stretching along the walls. He felt like he was standing at the edge of something he couldn't understand. Reality itself felt fragile. You said the body is confirmed, he murmured slowly, turning back toward Hale. Yes, the officer replied gently. Daniel's chest tightened. Then who is she? He whispered. No one answered. He looked back at the woman wearing his wife's face, searching desperately for something real, something familiar, anything that proved he wasn't losing his mind. But the longer he stared, the more distant she seemed. And for the first time, a terrifying thought settled fully into place. Maybe the woman he loved really had died. And whatever stood in his kitchen now was something else entirely. Chapter 8, Confession and Manipulation. The kitchen felt smaller than it had ever been. Maybe it was the way she stood there, leaning against the counter like she belonged to the shadows instead of the house. Or maybe it was the way the police officers had withdrawn to the living room, giving them space that felt more like a trap than privacy. The overhead light hummed softly. Outside, rain tapped against the windows with patient insistence. He stood near the doorway, unsure whether he was confronting his wife or a stranger wearing her skin. She poured herself a glass of water, slow and deliberate, as if this were just another evening. You look like you're waiting for me to confess to murder, she said lightly. His throat tightened. Maybe I am. She smirked. That smirk wrong. Not quite hers. He remembered her laughter before. Warm, full, slightly embarrassed. This was sharper, almost playful in a cruel way. Sit down, she said. I'll stand. She shrugged. Silence stretched between them until it snapped. The officers told me everything, he said, voice trembling despite his effort to keep it steady. Identity fraud. Hospital chaos. Stage death. So tell me, what exactly are you? Her eyes flickered at that. Amusement. Annoyance. Something deeper. I'm me, she said simply. No, he said, shaking his head. No, you're not. She took a sip of water, watching him over the rim of the glass. You want the truth? She asked. Yes. A pause. Then she exhaled, long and slow, like someone releasing a burden she had carried too long. My partner helped arrange it. The words landed heavily. Partner, he repeated, the word tasting bitter. She nodded. He works at the hospital. Administrative access. Scheduling. Records. During the surgical rush last month, it was chaos. Mistakes everywhere. Bodies moved, files delayed, identification tags mixed. We used that. His chest tightened. You faked your death. Yes. The simplicity of it made his stomach twist. You let me bury you, he whispered. She didn't respond immediately. I didn't think you'd need to, she said finally. He laughed, a sharp, broken sound. You didn't think I'd need to? He repeated. I watched them close your coffin. Her eyes softened for a fraction of a second. That part wasn't supposed to happen. What was supposed to happen? He demanded. Her gaze drifted toward the window, as if replaying memories only she could see. I was supposed to disappear, she said quietly. New identity. New life. With him. The words sliced through him. So you cheated, he said flatly. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. His hands curled into fists. All those late nights, he said. Not work, she confirmed. The gym membership? She smiled faintly. You noticed that? The perfume, he continued, voice growing louder. The distance. The silence. She tilted her head. You noticed everything except what mattered. What mattered, he shouted. That I was already gone. The words hit harder than anything else. He staggered back a step. I was trying to fix us, he said hoarsely. Working more hours. Planning trips. Talking about therapy. I know, she interrupted gently. Too gently. And that, she added, was the problem. He stared at her. You were safe, she said. Predictable. Kind. Stable. And that's bad. It's suffocating. The word hung between them like smoke. You wanted excitement, he said bitterly. I wanted to feel alive. Her voice flickered then, not mocking anymore, but almost desperate. And you thought pretending to die was the way to do that. She hesitated. Something shifted behind her eyes. The plan changed, she said slowly. Ow! She frowned, as if struggling to recall details that should have been obvious. We switched identities, she said. Another woman. Similar build. She was already dying. Paperwork altered. Bodies reassigned. His stomach churned. That's insane. Yes, she agreed quietly. Her tone had changed again, softer, almost confused. You're leaving something out, he said. She looked at him sharply. What? You came back here, he said. Why? If you wanted freedom, if you wanted him, why come back? She hesitated. The silence stretched too long. Assets, she said finally. The word felt cold. You came back for money. For security. For things. For survival, she corrected. But something felt wrong. She knew things she shouldn't. Little details slipping into her speech. References to memories that didn't match the timeline the officers described. Earlier, she had mentioned the night he burned dinner 3 years ago, a moment only they had shared. She had described the exact way, he had laughed nervously, the exact words he used. But according to her story, she had already been emotionally gone long before that. How do you know that? He asked suddenly. She blinked. Know what? That memory, he said. About the anniversary dinner. You just mentioned it. She froze. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. I remember, she said slowly. But you said you were already planning to leave back then. I was. Then why does it sound like you felt it? He pressed. Like you were there emotionally? Her breathing changed. Faster. Unsteady. I don't know, she whispered. The air thickened. For a moment, she looked genuinely frightened. Then the expression vanished, replaced by something colder. Does it matter? She asked. Yes, he said, because you keep slipping. You talk like two different people. She laughed quietly. Maybe I am. The words sent a chill through him. Is this some kind of psychological break? He asked. Did something happen during the surgery? During the switch? Her eyes darkened. Sometimes, she said slowly, I feel like I'm watching someone else's memories. His pulse thundered. What does that mean? She shook her head. I don't know. Some days, everything feels distant, like I'm wearing someone else's life. Her gaze dropped to her hands. These hands, she murmured. They feel familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. He swallowed hard. Are you saying you're not her? He whispered. She looked up. For a moment her expression softened, the old warmth returning, the woman he had loved. Then it shifted again, sharper. Or maybe, she said, voice low and teasing, I'm just very good at becoming whoever I need to be. He stepped back instinctively. The room felt colder. Who are you? He asked again. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Does it matter? She repeated. Yes, he said, voice cracking. Her expression flickered, genuine emotion surfacing for just a heartbeat. I wanted freedom, she said quietly. I want to stop being the loyal wife everyone expected. I wanted to disappear. And now? She hesitated. I don't know what I am now. Outside, thunder rolled softly. He watched her carefully, every movement, every micro-expression. Sometimes she felt like his wife. Sometimes like a stranger mimicking her. And sometimes like something else entirely. The officers' voices murmured faintly from the living room. He realized he was trembling. So you came back, he said slowly. Not for me. Not for us. Just for control. She didn't deny it. But something changed, he continued. Her eyes narrowed. What? You're not fully in control anymore. She didn't answer. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him as if he were a puzzle. Maybe, she said softly, you're finally seeing what was always there. The words lingered between them, heavy and unresolved. Chapter 9, The Twist. The house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a crime scene pretending to be ordinary. The officers had moved from cautious politeness to quiet urgency. One of them, Officer Pereira, stood near the living room window, speaking into his phone in low, clipped phrases. The other officer, Silva, remained seated but alert, eyes shifting constantly between the husband and the woman in the kitchen. Rain continued tapping against the glass, steady and relentless. The husband leaned against the hallway wall, arms folded tightly across his chest, watching her. She stood by the counter, fingers trailing slowly across its surface, as if feeling its texture for the first time. You're staring again, she said without looking at him. I don't know what else to do, he replied. Officer Pereira ended his call and turned toward them, expression darker than before. We need to talk, he said. The tone alone made the husband's stomach drop. What happened, he asked. Pereira hesitated, exchanging a glance with Silva before speaking. We've located the hospital employee you mentioned, he said carefully, looking at the woman. Her posture stiffened, and Pereira exhaled. He's dead. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The husband felt the air leave his lungs. What? He whispered. The woman's face remained strangely still. How? She asked. Found earlier today, Pereira said. Apartment complex outside the city. No immediate signs of forced entry. Cause of death is unclear. Unclear, the husband repeated. Silva spoke this time. There are signs suggesting it may not be natural. Investigation is ongoing. The husband turned toward her sharply. You knew? He asked. She shook her head slowly. No, but her voice lacked certainty. You helped plan this with him, he said. You were going to disappear together. I didn't know, she insisted, though her eyes flickered. Pereira stepped closer. We also recovered surveillance footage from the hospital, he continued, from a night of the alleged identity switch. And the husband asked, there are irregularities. What kind? Pereira hesitated again, as if choosing words carefully. Gaps, he said. Cameras glitching. Entire sections of footage missing or distorted. The husband felt cold creep up his spine. Distorted how? Visual noise, Silva answered. Like static. Figures moving but not clearly identifiable. Timestamps inconsistent. The woman laughed softly, but the sound was brittle. So your technology failed, and now you think I'm a ghost? She said. No one laughed with her. Pereira continued, voice steady. We're not making assumptions. But the timeline doesn't match what you described. She crossed her arms. I told you what happened. Yes, he said. But according to the footage, you entered the surgical wing at one time and appeared elsewhere minutes later without passing any monitored corridor. That's impossible, the husband murmured. Exactly, Silva said. The husband's gaze drifted back to her. She looked annoyed, but beneath that, something else flickered. Fear? Confusion? Are you saying someone tampered with the cameras? She asked. Possibly, Pereira said, or something else occurred. The room grew colder. The husband rubbed his arms absent-mindedly. Something about the way she stood suddenly felt familiar, painfully so. She shifted her weight slightly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His breath caught. That gesture. She used to do that constantly during the early years of their marriage, especially when nervous. He hadn't seen her do it in years. His voice came out softer. You used to do that when you were thinking. She froze. What? The hair, he said quietly. She blinked, looking genuinely confused. I always do that. No, he said slowly. You stopped. Her expression faltered. A strange silence filled the room. Pereira watched the exchange carefully. Sir, he said gently, can you explain? The husband hesitated. There are moments, he said slowly, eyes still on her, when she feels exactly like my wife from years ago. Before everything changed. She swallowed. What does that mean? It means you say things, do things that don't match the person you became recently. Silva leaned forward slightly. Examples? He nodded. This morning she used a phrase only my wife used during our first year together. he said. Something she stopped saying long before the affair started. What phrase? Pereira asked. He hesitated, embarrassed. It was a silly thing. She used to call me Stubborn Moon. No one else ever heard it. The woman's eyes widened. That's ridiculous, she said. Is it? He asked softly. She opened her mouth, then stopped. The room seemed to hold its breath. Without warning, she whispered, You said it made you sound like a cartoon character. The husband's heart slammed against his ribs. How do you know that? He asked. Her face drained of color. I don't know. Pereira and Silva exchanged another glance. Ma'am, Pereira said carefully, we need to consider all possibilities. Like what? She snapped. He hesitated. Like the possibility that your identity, legally or otherwise, may not be what we think. She laughed again, but it sounded hollow. So now I'm not even myself? No one answered. The husband stepped closer, unable to stop himself. There are things only she knew, he said quietly. Things you say without realizing. Her breathing grew uneven. That doesn't mean anything, she insisted. But her voice trembled. Another memory surfaced in his mind, sudden and vivid. A rainy night early in their marriage. She had stood exactly like this, arms folded, eyes defiant but vulnerable underneath. The same energy pulsed through her now. You used to hum when you cooked, he said softly. She blinked. I don't, she stopped. Because she was humming. Barely audible. A faint melody escaping her lips without conscious effort. Her eyes widened in horror. The humming stopped immediately. What is happening? She whispered. The officers remained silent, watching. The husband felt tears prick his eyes. Sometimes, he said slowly, you feel like a stranger. But sometimes, he couldn't finish the sentence. Because sometimes she felt more like his wife than she had in years. Pereira cleared his throat. We are not ruling out identity fraud, he said firmly. But given the inconsistencies, the dead associate, the corrupted footage, the behavioral contradictions, we must consider that the situation may be more complex. More complex how? The husband asked. Pereira hesitated. We don't know yet. The woman pressed her palms against the counter, breathing hard. I remember planning to leave, she said quietly. I remember wanting freedom. But other memories keep pushing through. Memories I didn't think mattered. Like what? Silva asked. She hesitated, eyes unfocused. Like the way he used to fall asleep on the couch with the television still on. She whispered. Or the time we got lost driving to the coast and ended up watching the sunrise instead. The husband's chest tightened. Those memories belonged to a time before everything fell apart. How do you know those? He asked. I don't know, she said, voice trembling. The rain outside intensified, drumming louder against the windows. The room felt heavier with every passing second. Fraud, death, glitches, memories bleeding through like cracks in reality. The husband stared at her, heart torn between disbelief and something darker, something almost impossible. Was she a liar continuing a manipulation? Or had something come back wearing her face, carrying fragments of a life that should have ended? Chapter 10. Final Confrontation and Transformation. The apartment felt impossibly small. Rain tapped relentlessly against the windows, each drop punctuating the heavy silence. Daniel stood in the center of the kitchen, fists clenched, heart hammering. Across from him, the woman, the one wearing his wife's face, leaned against the counter, arms folded, expression unreadable, yet faintly smug. He drew in a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Enough, he said finally, voice low but sharp. I've listened to your lies. I've watched you twist reality and manipulate everything I believed in. I'm done. She raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. Done? Oh, Daniel, you look so dramatic when you finally snap. He stepped closer, eyes burning. I trusted you. I loved you. I worked for us. And you? He stopped, swallowing hard. The words caught in his throat. You weren't there. You never were. Not really. Her smirk faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of something darker, more dangerous. Is that what you think? She asked softly, almost a whisper. That the woman you loved ever existed? Or maybe she was just your fantasy all along. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine, but he refused to step back. Fantasy or not, I know the truth now. You don't get to rewrite it. You don't get to hurt me and play house with death and memories. She tilted her head, studying him, almost amused. You sound so safe. Predictable. Loyal. Just like before. And that's why you didn't notice. You never noticed. He clenched his jaw. I noticed enough. Enough to see who you really are. Enough to see the lies. And enough to finally stop giving a damn about them. Her eyes flickered with something human. Annoyance, maybe fear, or perhaps recognition that she'd lost control. For the first time, her voice wavered. Control? You think this was about control? You think I care what you think? He interrupted, the words sharp, cold. No, I care about what I know. And what I know is this. You're not her. You never were. Not in the way I believed. For a moment, the room seemed suspended in time. Rain outside pounded harder, as if echoing his heartbeat. She opened her mouth, but Daniel cut her off again. I've been living my life thinking I could fix things, thinking I could keep us together, but this, he gestured around the room, to the chaos. This isn't about me or you. It's about what you want. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't need you. Her smirk returned, slightly cocky, almost defiant. So, you just gonna walk away? Yes, he said, voice steady now. I'm done holding on to someone who never wanted to be held. I'm done letting your lies define me. She laughed, low and sharp, but there was no warmth. You think you could just walk away from everything? From me? He shook his head. I don't need to walk away. I just stop giving you the power to hurt me. The silence stretched for a moment longer. Then it was a knock at the door. Officer Pereira's voice called from a hallway. Daniel, step aside. Daniel stepped back, his body finally loosening its tension. The woman turned slightly, as if aware something was coming. The officers moved in swiftly, but calmly, handcuffing her. She didn't resist. Her expression shifted from smugness to something colder, more distant, almost like a mask slipping. You'll be questioned for the fraud, the manipulation, everything, Pereira said. But you're under arrest. She looked at Daniel one last time. Her eyes flickered with something strange. Recognition? Remorse? Or something else entirely. The ambiguity made him shiver, but he held his ground. You don't get to leave a mess and haunt me, he said quietly. Her lips curved in a half-smile. Maybe some things are meant to haunt you. The officers led her away. Daniel didn't follow. He let the door close behind them. The echo of her presence lingered in the apartment, heavy, unreal. For a long moment, he just stood there, breathing, letting the storm outside and inside wash over him. The adrenaline ebbed, leaving space for clarity. He thought of the nights he had stayed up waiting, the bills he had managed, the meals he had cooked, the small gestures meant to preserve their life together. All of it felt bittersweet now, but he realized something crucial. Those efforts weren't wasted. They weren't meaningless. They had simply been misdirected towards someone who didn't deserve them. Daniel walked slowly to the counter, touching the edge, feeling the cool surface beneath his fingers. He remembered the little things, the soft hum of the coffee maker in the morning, the smell of her favorite perfume before she left for work, and allowed himself to feel them as memories, not as a tether. I can't control what she was, he whispered to himself. I can't control what she became, but I can control what I do now. He moved to the window, looking out at the rain, the city beyond. Life stretched forward, unpredictable and unrelenting, but now, for the first time in weeks, it felt like his own. The adrenaline, the fear, the grief, all of it had transformed. Not into anger, not into revenge, into quiet strength. He let himself exhale fully, shoulders dropping for the first time in weeks. No longer defined by loyalty to someone unworthy. No longer haunted by a ghost wearing his wife's face. He could grieve. He could rebuild. He could choose himself. The officers returned briefly to the doorway. We'll need your statement, Pereira said. Daniel nodded. I'll cooperate. He turned back to the kitchen one last time. Empty now. No smirk, no bracelet, no flicker of familiarity. Just silence. And in that silence, he found peace. The hardest lesson, he murmured to himself, voice low but firm, wasn't losing her. It was realizing I never truly had her, Only the version I chose to believe in.